everyone, welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time. I'm Stephanie to Cooking 100-Year-Old Recipes. So I was looking through the book to figure out what I wanted to make for you in this week's video, and I saw in the cookie section, which is where I was looking because the holidays are coming and we all love a holiday cookie, right? This recipe I'm making is called chocolate cakes. And that being in a cookie section is a little, what's going on with that? Then I look at the ingredients and I did laugh out loud. I truly did. It's a shame I didn't have a camera on me. This is another recipe that uses breadcrumbs. And if you've seen the other videos on this channel, or I invite you to go watch them, about a third of them include breadcrumbs. And to turn breadcrumbs into cakes, which are actually not cakes but are cookies, how could I resist? So I have crumbed up some of my leftover pieces of the the weekly loaf I bake every week, and got it ready to go into this cake. So I'm going to start off here and get things going. You can watch. This is a pretty standard put together recipe with the beating the eggs and creaming things together, except there are breadcrumbs in it. And while the concept of using breadcrumbs in a cake isn't all that odd because it's any of the same ingredients you find in a cake, these ingredients have already been cooked. But I like the idea that it uses up things that are left over. Waste not, want not. But since I make fresh bread every week, my bread does not last for a whole week, even with the addition of milk powder. And I always have a little bit left. So let's see how this does. So this has a partially cooked frosting called White Mountain frosting. I don't know if that'll be in this video or if I'm going to keep it as a separate video, but you'll know where to find it when this is posted. And then I'm also using black cocoa powder in addition to regular cocoa powder. And black cocoa powder is what makes an Oreo an Oreo. And I keep it in this jar because cocoa powder in the wild is extremely messy. So I can spoon it out from there. Generally, whenever I use cocoa powder, I cut it with black cocoa powder, which you should not use straight because it's just too strong. But when you cut it by a third or by half, it's perfect. Alright, so let's get to mixing these eggs. Now that I've creamed the butter and sugar, I'm going to add in the cocoa. So the recipe calls for baker's chocolate, and I'm using the cocoa powder and fat ratio for this. That's going to give me the flavor that I want. So I'm going to use, let's see, 3 squares is, so it's 3 tablespoons of cocoa to 1 tablespoon of fat. So I'm going to use, that's 9 total. So I'm going to use 3 tablespoons of the dark cocoa and then 6 regular to total my 9 tablespoons. 3. And the remaining 6. And for the top, I'm not using butter or oil. I want shortening because of the texture. You know how shortening firms up like chocolate does. So I have it melted down because this was supposed to be melted chocolate. 1, 2, that's 3 tablespoons, 1 for each equivalent square of chocolate. And the breadcrumbs go in now. So I've got 1 cup of my homemade breadcrumbs. I'm going to mix this a little bit first, just very lightly. I'm going to pour in the breadcrumbs. A tiny bit of flour that binds this. Do a very light mix before I add in the flour because I don't want to develop any gluten. Okay, take these out. I'm going to hand mix the rest because I don't really know what to expect from this recipe using already cooked bread in here. But we're going to find out. This book has been pretty good so far, so I'm going to just trust the process. Let's put some flour. So there's no leavener in this. This is one of the recipes that does not have a baking temperature or a pan size mentioned, but it says to spread over a shallow pan. So I'm using this is a quarter sheet, I believe in baker's terms. I'm using parchment paper that I've cut in half. They're pre-cut sheets. And let's just spread this out, see how we do. Black cocoa is always so messy, but it's just delicious. I love it. I know it's not everybody's taste, but I'm the one eating it, so do it my way. It's just an option if black cocoa is not on your radar. Maybe I'm introducing you to something that is going to be life-changing in your kitchen, to your taste buds. Okay. And then I'll put spatula I think this is a good size. And this isn't going to puff up. There's actually a picture in the book, one of the very few in the book, and these are quite thin. They do look like a cookie thickness rather than a cake. I'm trying to think what those cakes are called. The little snack cakes from maybe it's Hostess or Little Debbie. Ding dongs. What's the shape? I don't want to sound like a snob. I don't eat those things. I'm sure I ate them when I was young, child, but as an adult I do not. But if you like them, enjoy them. We don't judge here. I think I'm going to wet this just to see if that helps get it a little bit more smooth. The yield water trick. I'm sure they knew that back in 1897. They certainly knew yield breadcrumb tricks. I tell you, even the lentil croquettes I made 1 or 2 recipes ago, that had breadcrumbs in the recipe and on the outside of the recipe. Yeah, that helped a little bit. Okay, let me put this in the oven. There's no baking time, so I just have to watch it until it looks set. And I don't know what temperature. You know, the eggs will be cooked to safety pretty quickly. I'll probably test it by touching it, and I could maybe taste an end. But all right, let's see how we do. I'm doing this test for your entertainment. Hopefully it comes out delicious and it's not just a entertaining disaster. Alright, I'm going to use this size. This is, let me get a ruler. It's because I think if I do 2 of the one that's a little bit bigger, it's going to be too big. This is 1 3/4. This one is 2 1/4. Let's do with this size. So I baked this for about 20 minutes in a 320 oven. And it's been cooling off. Yeah, it makes a nice clean cut. It's not dry. It's still a little bit moist, but you can see it's holding its shape nicely. And it's completely cooled. I'm going to cut these up. I want them ready when the frosting is done, because it looks like the frosting is a little bit of a mood, temperamental. I don't want any crumbs. I want it to look pretty. The white frosting against the almost black little cookie cake things. I did a little investigating to see why it is breadcrumbs are being used so often in this book. Oftentimes, cookbooks are very reflective of society at the time that they are published. For instance, in modern cookbooks, you'll see a whole range of books covering using the air fryer and even slow cooker books because they've made a comeback in recent years. So for breadcrumbs to be so frequently used in this book in every category, it was no surprise for me to learn that specifically when this book was being written, up until the time it was published, America was in a recession from 1893 to 1897, and that's likely the amount of time it took to write the book because books are a slow process, and printing was slower than it is as we know it today in modern times. So it would make perfect sense that families did not want to waste even a single slice of bread or the end of a bread, and in fact repurposing breadcrumbs into a tasty dessert for children or at the end of a family meal is such a wonderful idea. Now this dessert, it tastes like Oreos, obviously because I used the black cocoa, but it has a nice cookie flavor and a tasty cream center that doesn't run. It's not quite as good as the lemon pie recipe that has another surprising cooked ingredient in it, and that recipe was due to a lemon shortage that was going on at the time as well. And I'll link the card so you can watch that. That was a very delicious recipe. That's definitely in my top 5 that I've made so far.